how it all could end in murder. The morning after was supposed to be filled with brunch plans, honeymoon photographs, and thank you calls to family. Instead, the honeymoon suite remained eerily silent. The bride's phone buzzed repeatedly on the nightstand. Calls from her mother, a text from her maid of honor, notifications from friends who were still gushing over her wedding photos online. But inside the room, there was no movement. By mid-morning, a hotel housekeeper knocked on the door. At first, she assumed the couple was simply sleeping in after a long night. She called out softly, "Housekeeping," but got no answer. Hours passed. The staff began to grow uneasy. Checkout time was approaching, and the room was still locked from the inside. Finally, just after noon, the manager made the decision. With a master key in hand, he pushed the door open. The scene that greeted them was one they would never forget. The room was unnaturally still, the air heavy and stale. Curtains were half drawn, letting in slivers of sunlight that fell across the bed. At first glance, it looked like the bride was only sleeping, tucked under the covers with her gown folded neatly nearby. But the bruising around her neck told another story. Her skin had already taken on that unmistakable pallor, the kind that needed no doctor to confirm. The groom sat in the corner chair, his massive body slumped forward, his hands covering his face. He didn't move when the staff entered. He didn't speak. He simply rocked slightly, muttering words too soft to make out. The housekeeper gasped, stumbling back into the hallway. The manager froze, hands still on the doorframe. Within minutes, someone dialed 911. The first officers on the scene approached cautiously. They'd been told it was a medical emergency, but the moment they stepped inside, the truth was plain. One officer checked for a pulse. Nothing. Another guided the groom to his feet, though he resisted at first, mumbling that he didn't mean it. They let him outside as paramedics rushed in. By then, curious guests had gathered in the hallway. Whispers spread like wildfire. Something happened in there. It's the newlyweds, isn't it? Phones came out, recording shaky videos as police escorted the groom down the narrow staircase. His face pale, his eyes blank. Within an hour, those clips were circulating online, captions speculating about what could have gone wrong in the honeymoon suite. News traveled fast in a small town. By the time detectives arrived, half the community already knew something terrible had happened. Outside the inn, reporters gathered with cameras, and locals stood at a distance, murmuring in disbelief. This wasn't just any bride. This was the young woman who had stunned everyone by marrying the 500-pound man just 2 days earlier. Inside, investigators began their work. The room told its own story. No forced entry, no sign of robbery. Jewelry and cash were still on the dresser. The only evidence of struggle was on the bed. The sheets twisted, a pillow on the floor, faint scratches along the groom's forearms. The medical examiner, arriving shortly after, confirmed what the bruising already suggested: manual strangulation. A deliberate act, not an accident. Detectives collected the bride's phone, its screen still glowing with unread messages. In the chat history, they found what friends had hinted at in interviews later: cruel words, mocking descriptions of her new husband, sent only hours before she died. Screenshots painted a picture of disdain that clashed violently with the smiling wedding photos posted online. By late afternoon, the groom was sitting in the back of a patrol car, head bowed, hands cuffed. He hadn't tried to run, hadn't raised his voice. He only repeated fragments of confession. "She laughed at me. I just wanted her to stop." His voice cracked. The weight of his body slumped against the seat as if crushed by something heavier than even his own frame. The shockwave tore through the town. At the local diner, conversations halted mid-sentence as phones lit up with news alerts. On social media, the hashtag 500-pound groom began trending within hours, first locally, then nationally. Some posts dripped with cruel humor, others with outrage, but all carried the same disbelief. How could a marriage that began with such spectacle end in murder in less than 48 hours? At the bride's family home, grief poured out onto the porch. Neighbors describe her mother collapsing when the news came, clutching at relatives as sirens wailed in the distance. Candles and flowers began to appear by nightfall. a makeshift vigil